5 surprising facts that I bet you didn't know about insulin resistance. My name is Amy Kandeski. I'm a registered nurse and certified hormone specialist, and I help exhausted moms over 40 skyrocket their energy, lose the belly fat so they can feel confident in a bikini again. So here are 5 things that I bet you didn't know about insulin resistance. Number 1 is you can have a normal fasting glucose and still have insulin resistance. In fact, you can have a normal fasting glucose for years, almost a decade, before it even shows up as an abnormal A1C or an abnormal glucose. And things that your doctor is not testing for that's going to show insulin resistance is a HOMA IR score, and you can definitely DM me or drop a comment below and I can tell you what that is, but you're going to need a fasting glucose and a fasting insulin to get that score. Triglyceride HDL ratio is also going to show us if you have insulin resistance, and also a fasting insulin, which most doctors do not draw. So that's something that you can ask your doctor for: a fasting insulin, fasting glucose, and then a lipid panel. So triglycerides, HDL. Next is going to be belly fat. So belly fat is a symptom of insulin resistance. It's not the problem. And it's a huge sign that your cells are not responding to insulin. So what's happening is glucose rises after your meals. It's not getting inside the cell, so it gets stored as fat. And that fat is typically in our belly area because that's a protective mechanism for our body, is to store it there, unfortunately. So if you have belly fat that you can't get rid of despite not changing anything with diet or exercise and actually eating in a caloric deficit and exercising more, that actually makes belly fat worse. It makes insulin resistance worse. And I'll explain that in just a little bit. Next is insulin resistance tanks your libido. So if you are in midlife and you're struggling with your libido, it went away, it didn't come back, or maybe you notice just a hint of libido once a month, maybe when you ovulate. That's not normal. I want you to know that. It's not normal. You should have desire over 40. You should have a libido. And it's a sign, if you don't have it, of an underlying root cause. And so what happens is high insulin will actually lower SHBG, sex hormone binding globulin, and then that disrupts your sex hormones. So it's going to affect estrogen and it's going to affect testosterone. And then lastly is you can reverse insulin resistance, but you can't do it with undereating and overdoing cardio. And again, that makes it worse because it signals to your body that you're not safe. And so that raises cortisol. Cortisol then signals to your liver to dump sugar into the bloodstream. And then that increases insulin, and it just makes the whole cycle worse. So what can we actually do to reverse insulin resistance? Well, if you're not strength training, I highly recommend strength training, like lifting heavy weights. I'm not talking about 5 pounds. And doing it on a consistent basis. So 3 days a week, 4 days a week of heavy strength training. Because the more muscle you have, the more insulin sensitive you will be. So we want to be building muscle in midlife. Next is zone 2 cardio. So that helps with mitochondrial health. It helps with insulin sensitivity. Zone 2 cardio is when you're doing cardio and your heart rate is between 60 and 70% of your max heart rate. So how to figure this out is you're going to take 220 minus your age times 0.6 to get the low range, and then 220 minus your age times 0.7 to get the high range. And so my zone 2 heart rate is between 108 and 124, which does not sound like it's a very intense workout, because it isn't. It's a brisk walk. That's what zone 2 cardio is. Nervous system regulation, because again, even if we are, oh my God, I skipped this. I skipped number 2. Even if we are eating healthy, stress, cortisol will cause your liver to dump sugar into your bloodstream. So number 2 is, it's not just, insulin resistance is not just about eating processed unhealthy foods that have lots of sugar. It comes from chronic stress a lot of times. And the more cortisol you have, the higher your glucose is, the more insulin is needed to control it in your bloodstream, because high glucose is very dangerous for our organs. So our body tries to compensate by then increasing our insulin. So that's why we need nervous system regulation. And so I do this in my metabolic reset method and coaching program. And we look at your minerals, we look at a Dutch hormone test, and we see where your cortisol's at, we see where your adrenal function's at, and then we do things to help support your nervous system. And then microdosing, a GLP-1, a GIP. My personal favorite is GIP, GLP. That's tirzepatide. That's what I use. And that can really, really help sensitize your cells to glucose again. And it increases those metabolic signals, which is really what we need with insulin resistance. And a lot of times, diet and exercise alone, once you get to that point of insulin resistance, and let's say you are doing the strength training, you are doing zone 2 cardio, you are trying to manage your stress, you are sleeping enough, and still nothing's budging, then that's where microdosing comes in. And it is like the one thing that finally moves the needle. It was for me. So if you want more information on that, please send me a DM and just say microdosing. I'll send you more information. You can also find microdosing in the link in my bio and Linktree. It will say microdosing GLP plus GIP. That's what I recommend. You're going to click the link. You'll fill out a medical questionnaire form. You're going to get a prescription for you from a licensed doctor. It's going to be sent from a 503A pharmacy, so we're not buying things off the gray market, not knowing what's in them or what dosage we should take. We're getting an exact prescription for exactly what your body needs. And if you're interested in learning more about insulin resistance, DM me help, and I'll send you my free insulin resistance guide. I hope this was helpful.